Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Optimist Education for Children organization, I am Rubaya Tanjung, the project coordinator. Welcome everyone to our Facebook Live. Today, it's about career planning during COVID-19, and our focus is going to be on cybersecurity and public speaking. I am also management information. I have also majored in management information system and currently working as an underwriter in United Wholesale Mortgage. To begin with, I'd like to tell everyone about the Optimist, what we do, and who we are. We are a United States-based 501c3 registered nonprofit organization. um, we offer sponsorships to students in Bangladesh who are financially struggling to complete their education. And to learn in depth about us, more in details, you can find all the information on our Facebook page or our website, www.theoptimist.org. And we are going through a rough time because of COVID-19, this pandemic. So when COVID-19 started to take a huge toll on our personal and professional lives, The Optimist started a Facebook Live series on different aspects of our professional and personal life to improve it a little bit, to be more productive, staying at home, what we can do as a whole, as a community. Um, so in today's live is extra special for us because we are collaborating with another nonprofit organization called Bangladeshi American Society of Professionals, also known as BSP. And on their behalf, I have Shahanaz Rahman Apu as my co-host. So I'm gonna give the screen to her now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shahanaz. I am a board member of BSP, but in addition, I manage clinical trials in oncology, and I'm also the co-founder of Bangla Foundation. So I'm super excited to be co-hosting with Rubaiyat for today's webinar. I want to let you know a little bit about BSP. It was established back in 2019 as a 501c3, and our goal is really to create a networking platform between Bangladeshi professionals and students. So one of the things that we like to do is do mentoring, resume building, etc. And then, of course, host webinars so that we can discuss like different careers and kind of expose everyone to the various industries that are out there. So today we're very, very excited to have Sabirul and Sharmeen talk to us about a little bit about what they do, about their experiences. Sharmeen is here with cybersecurity, and Sabirul is going to give us a little bit more information on public speaking. So Sharmeen, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be great. And then we'll have Sabirul end the introductions.
Sure. Thank you, Shanaz, and thank you, Rubaiyat, and thanks to Optimist and BSA for inviting me to speak in this important event. COVID-19 is definitely impacting all of us, some people in a positive way and some people most of the people in a very negative way. So I guess we're going to talk through that in this webinar, but let me introduce myself first. So I work for the Federal Reserve Bank as Senior Cybersecurity Specialist. Prior to this role, I used to be the IT Audit Manager of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Before I say anything else, I do need to express a disclaimer, is that the views that I express are completely my own, and they do not represent the views of Federal Reserve Bank of New York or Federal Reserve System. So, an interesting fact is that I'm in my current role as cybersecurity specialist, and I actually transferred to this role during the pandemic. It was in mid-April when I was interviewed, and I started my new role. Back to you, Rubaiyat.
Well, thank you so much, Sharmin Siddiqui. And right now we're going to move on to Sabirul Islam to tell us about himself.
Thanks, Rubaiyat. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be invited to this wonderful webinar session hosted by The Optimist and BSP. So thanks all. So my name is Sabirul. I've been a professional speaker now for over 13 years. I've traveled to around 31 different countries, and it's been quite a rewarding and a journey in the fact that I did it all purely on the idea that we can all make a difference. We can all have some form of say in the world. That the idea behind wanting to achieve something and leave behind a legacy was something that really drove me. But it's not to say that I naturally grew into this position as a professional speaker, because I was this very shy, introverted character growing up who would be the one who would often be associated with not many people, who would be sitting in the back of the class or the back of the room, and want to keep myself distant away from people. And all of that in itself had significant effect in terms of how I thought, how I behaved, how I acted, and it impacted my level of confidence. So for me, over the past few years, public speaking helped me develop that level of confidence to interact with people much better and to also establish a career based around that. I'm also a published author. I've written now 3 books, with the 4th one coming out in December this year. And I've set up a new online platform called Build Your Confidence on Stage. So people who have experienced issues just like me, and whether it's as a student, as a professional, to help and guide them to actually develop that level of confidence in public speaking. So I'm very much excited about talking about that journey, about that experience, and what it is I do and teach as part of the whole program. So I hope everyone is tuned in and listening, and I hope you got a pen and a paper, because there's a lot of information I'll be sharing.
Great, Sabirul. That is a great way of like taking notes and keeping it in mind so that they can improve themselves. Thank you so much for that. And we will move on to learning a little bit more about cybersecurity. What's the demand of cybersecurity across the industries? Sorry. And what are the academic requirements, and what certifications do you need? Is there anything required? Is there something you can opt for? And as Charmaine already told us that how she landed the first job, but we want to know about your journey, how you did it. So if you could let us know in your own words. Charmaine, over to you.
Sure. First of all, regarding the demands of cybersecurity, it hasn't been more than enough that has been now, and it's growing. So a study showed that the cybersecurity demand will increase, only increase a lot by 2021. So there will be around 3 million jobs for cybersecurity around the globe. So the demand is there, but there is lack of professionals in the cybersecurity. Alone in US, currently there are like 3,000 jobs that are open for cybersecurity. More than half of these jobs are for the entry-level positions. So this is the demand. And during the pandemics, we're seeing more cyber attacks. The cyber attackers are getting really creative the way they're attacking the financial institutions, they're attacking the healthcare systems. So it hasn't, so we're seeing the impact and we're seeing that demand during the pandemic for cybersecurity professionals even more. So if you see in the LinkedIn, you'll see more than 100,000 jobs for just for cybersecurity that are open across the country right now. So that's the demand. The next thing, how you get to cybersecurity field. So if you're doing your bachelor, if you're in information security or computer information security or management information security, but I know that you mentioned that you are in management information security. So that study area, also computer science, software engineering, software architect, any of these fields are good to enter in cybersecurity. So cybersecurity has many areas. For example, networking security, database security, and then others like incident response, all these areas. So you can come from like varieties of background, and if you have the interest, you can apply for these jobs. Some of the certifications that are out there for entry level, there are good certifications provided by Microsoft, So you can go in and check out Microsoft. There is entry-level certification that is provided by Microsoft. I think it's called MTA certification. Also, other entry-level certifications are provided by COMP, TIA Plus, and those are very highly recognized in the industry. ISACA also provides good certification for cybersecurity. CSX is one of the cybersecurity certification that ISACA provides. That's fairly new. They have started offering that for like last 4 or 5 years. ISACA also has variety of certifications that you can take and land to your first cybersecurity job, like CISA, CISM, all these certifications. So, and there are also other certifications for mid-level professionals. So for example, if you are in IT audit or if you are in any other profession, but you're interested to move to a cybersecurity profession, you can take higher level of certification, for example, CISSP that is offered by the IS Square and ISC Square, and there are other certifications offered by ISACA, which you can take to land to be like a CISO of a company. You can also pursue masters, which I did. So I recently completed my master's in cybersecurity from Brown University, and that helped me a lot to transfer to a cybersecurity job. And also my audit career, my IT audit career helped me to get here. Prior to how did I land to my recent job, and I'll give you some of the history. How I get here. I have over 19 years of experience in the industry. So from the beginning, I graduated from Baruch College, and from the beginning, I always followed my passion and interest and market demand. So those three things helped me get where I am right now. And one thing I was interested was that if I save money, I'll invest it for my education, to gain certification or to have education from good or reputed university, and that helped too. So basically, after I graduated from Baruch College, I joined at Deloitte as the consultant for the enterprise risk services. There, I had many large clients in the financial institutions such as Morgan Stanley, also ADP, and some other large financial institutions where I actually reviewed their IT risk and controls and developed external auditors report for them. Then I really got interested in the financial side. So I took a job in Goldman Sachs in the finance group, and I wanted to try that area. So I tried that for about 1.5 years. Great area, but I figured that that's not for me. So then I also tried out IT project management area, which was also rewarding and very interesting. But as a woman, I needed a balance, a work-life balance. And then I landed the IT audit career where I thought I found the right balance. And while I was doing IT audit, I thought, okay, how can I improve my skill sets and what's the next step for me? I can't be IT auditor for the rest of my life, although I enjoyed it, but I always wanted to do something new. That's when I kind of started studying and seeing, okay, what should I do? So I already had CISA and I had PMP after I had done that IT project management job for a software company. So then I was like, okay, so what should I do more to expand my expertise and career? So I found out this program after searching and talking to other people at my work. There is actually the Ivy Leagues, some of the Ivy Leagues offer executive master's degree in cybersecurity. So I like the Brown's program of cybersecurity. So they only take 25 students worldwide, and you have to have certain level of expertise. Most of the students in my class came from law background. They came from, some of them came from engineering background. Not all of them had IT background. And while studying, some of them became CISO of companies. So the reason I'm telling you that any certification that you achieve in that area and or any education that you earn is going to help you land in that cybersecurity job. And there's a lot of demand right now. Back to you, Rubai.
All right. So I'm going to be introducing Sabirul, who is one of the best public speakers that we have within our Bangladeshi community. So, we definitely want him to touch upon some subjects about, how to overcome fears of public speaking, and then also to tell us about his experiences writing a few books. He's got one that is soon to be published, so I'm not going to spoil anything. I will just hand it over to Sabirul so that he can tell you guys what he has to say. All right, Sabirul?
Thank you, Shahnaz. Well, the idea of public speaking actually terrifies a lot of people. And to be fair, I'm not surprised because I've been in that exact same forte, in that situation. Because when the idea of presenting in front of people who you've actually not come across before, or a large group of people, the mental thought process, the psychology that actually overpowers you, thinking that I'm not good enough. This isn't for me. This is not my stage. And even when preparing for the speech itself, people often do not put enough emphasis time. So obviously the end outcome has significant damage or issues to their reputation, their presence on stage, and ultimately that whole belief, that's belief system everybody has inside them, almost crashes down. And this is exactly how I felt. And I'm talking about not feeling this about a couple of years ago. I'm talking about in my teenage life, while still in the academics, because the academics didn't teach me how to feel confident. It didn't teach me how to stand up in front of a group of people and to share my vision, my ideas, my long-term goals with the people.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. If you could lower down your microphone so it will be a little louder. Thank you.
Thanks for that. So the idea of actually trying to educate academics was actually really, really important. So for me, during my teenage life, I actually did things differently. I wasn't just focusing on my studies. Really, I was actually going and actually thinking, what can I do beyond that forte to be able to understand what I want to do, where I want to go, and where my confidence lies? Because as I told you, I was this very shy individual. And so I set up my first business at the age of 14, and that in itself paved way to understand and experience meeting people, because I didn't know that confidence comes from having to break these initial relationship barriers that we have with individuals. Because if you're an introvert, like I was, I would often keep myself very, very sort of held back and not interact with as much people, because I don't know them other than my social community or this group of friends that I had, which I was very tight with. I would often avoid everybody else. So setting up a business was a great initiative for me to be able to learn how to knock on doors, how to be able to introduce myself, that I'm Sabirul Islam, I'm going out and about to be able to make a difference in this community with this sort of product and service. And the whole idea behind that was not just necessarily to gain confidence, but to also understand where the element of self-discovery comes from, because public speaking was a crucial element. So when I turned 17, this is when I actually got into public speaking. And there's a reason behind it. When turning 17, I actually wrote my first book, so called World at Your Feet. And the book was really to empower other young people that even if you are young, even if you have certain challenges, no matter what community, what background, you can all do something different, something extraordinary, and turn that vision you have into reality. And the book itself opened that door for me to go and speak in front of an audience. And my first ever audience, I want to tell you a quick story about that. My first ever audience was a group of teachers. I spoke in front of around 200 head teachers from across the UK who all attended one event. And I was very fortunate to be invited. But I was holding these cue cards because I spent a lot of time trying to write a speech and trying to read it on stage word for word. And I was so vulnerable on stage. I was so fragile on stage. People in the audience could see it, they could hear it, they could feel it in my voice that, oh my God, this guy has not spoken on stage before, but he's making an attempt of it. And I was 17 at that time. And the response I got back, because in my own head, I was thinking as I was performing, was that I'm not doing great. I'm losing the audience. But they got to see a different side of me. They got to see a different perspective because they saw that vulnerability on stage. They saw that person, that character who I was trying to represent myself as, that yes, I can do this. Everyone should have that confidence, when me myself was shaking on stage. What they saw was a character, an individual who was trying to beat his own demons, my own psychological demons. And I think public speaking, one of the crucial elements is to be able to learn to practice, but practice in reality on stage. And no matter how much you could write a perfect script, no matter how much it is you can put together a wonderful, powerful speech, taking on board your experiences that you might have done, if you don't actually present it on stage, you won't know how best to really leverage off that. So those feedback I got from those teachers was absolutely amazing, purely on the basis that they saw this vulnerable character and they wanted to invite me to go and speak to their audience, to their students. And that was a big learning curve for me, that no matter how shy you are, how much of an introvert you think you are, making an attempt of something and making yourself unintentionally look good but at bad at the same time, and exposing that character, that vulnerable character of yours, really does make a difference. But obviously I was young at that time, and it's one of those where a bit of a 50-50 thing. You either win them or you lose them, and they think, who on earth is this guy? Why is he? But for me, what I personally learned from that experience was that it is possible. And what I learned about preparation, yes, I put a lot of time into preparing this speech, looking into my background, looking into stories that I had about me, and trying to craft the story. And it worked. A lot of preparation went into it, a lot of rehearsals went into it, but when you're on stage, it's a whole different experience. And that was my first ever speech. And I think from then onwards, everything sort of fell into place naturally. The more and more I spoke about the subject, on self-discovery, on my journey, on my personal experience, the more I improved and the better I got. And I think everybody needs to be able to learn to understand that sort of character that they develop when it comes to public speaking. And when you're looking out throughout my journey, I learned a lot, and I kept learning new things, new techniques, new strategies to be able to improve these skills, because you cannot just be somebody who wants to feel confident and go out and about and do it and think you've actually achieved something or you've achieved some form of success. To keep pushing that boundary, that barrier, you need to be able to learn to really inject your knowledge with new angles, new twists, new way of thinking. And I did a lot of book reading. I met a lot of other speakers who were in the same environment, and I think that was a big experience for me. And it's a message that I want to share with everybody listening in, purely on the basis that to grow is not just about what you know, but it's about taking on board information and knowledge from others and learning from their mistakes, their experiences, and seeing how you can fine tune those. And it was in 2010 that I launched what was called the Inspire 1 Million campaign, because I wanted to take the idea of speaking to an international stage, because I felt that the UK market for me was a very limited or very small or very saturated in the fact that there was too many people speaking very much on similar subjects. There were a lot of young entrepreneurs coming through who were talking about their success stories in business, and very few writing books. So all of this paved way for an idea, a grand idea, that I want to go and travel the world to inspire 1 million people. I had buy-in from a lot of organizations who supported young people, JCI, Junior Chamber International, being one of them. And they help organize events all around the world, where I literally travel to a country. Botswana is always one of those ones where I use a pivotal example, because they paved way for what is possible. They showed me almost a light in terms of how far an individual story can go. So when traveling to Botswana in 2011, at the time, I think it was around September 2011, I spoke in front of 200,000 people with 43 events delivered in the space of 12 days. And that was a phenomenal experience. To think that a few years back, I was shy, very shy, holding cue cards and shaking like a leaf on stage, to be able to speak in front of that many people, 200,000 people in a nation I've never traveled to before, and make such a huge impact. All of this came from just having a little bit of belief, a little bit of preparation, a little bit of practice, to be able to build that confidence. And I think over the years, when the Inspire 1 Million became such a big success over the 4 years, where I did speak at 867 events across 4 years, it was such a rewarding experience that I felt that inspiration can only go a certain distance. I can only inspire a group of people, and that inspiration and motivation will stay afloat perhaps during the event, or an hour or two after the event, and then they go back to their normal routine, their normal lives. So how can I take that inspiration and educate people as well, that actually public speaking is something you can do from practice even at home, even whilst you're on your day-to-day jobs? So I set up what is called Build Your Confidence on Stage, which is a new platform that I'm working on and I've developed. And one of the programs, one of the courses that I launched on Build Your Confidence on Stage is what's called Present with Confidence. And that focuses on 5 key elements when it comes to, for example, how you handle your nerves on stage, which is a crucial factor when it comes to even before even writing a speech or thinking about a speech. You also look into how you prepare for an upcoming speech. What are the routines you need to go through? How do you get yourself prepared psychologically? And these were crucial things that I researched through my own experiences and through reading other books and listening to other speakers, what they've gone through. The third element of it was, how do you open a speech so that you can engage an audience right from the offset without having this issue, which I see quite often. For example, when you go to an event, live event, and you attend an event, and people start introducing themselves or start thanking themselves without going straight into the speech itself, because an audience has probably heard a couple of speakers already, and they want to know what's the new element you bring. If you're going on stage and reintroducing yourself, like the MC has already introduced you, and you're reintroducing yourself, I'm Sabirul Islam, I'm so and so, it's a pleasure to be here. So it doesn't really entice the audience from the offset. So if you're speaking at an event on stage, how do you grab them straight from the offset, whether it's through a question, whether it's through a story? And one of the questions I ask, for example, when stepping onto a stage, from my first couple of steps, even walking up the step itself, here's this question. When you leave this world, what will you be remembered for? It's a very deep, thought-provoking question, isn't it? So a question after a question, and then it kind of lays out the foundations of what I'll be talking about. And I think that in itself gives you an idea as to what's possible. The fourth element is how to grab and engage the audience. And I think there are a lot of ways in which you can do this during your speech so that you're able to get them to actively engage in your message. And then the fifth element is obviously wrapping it down, closing your speech, so you're able to, so the audience is able to take something away from your speech. All of these are critical factors that really harness your public speaking skills. And as part of Build Your Confidence on Stage, which is the new platform that I've created, this course called Present with Confidence is totally free. So anybody who wants to learn public speaking, anybody who wants to build their confidence in public speaking, whether you're a working professional or an emerging leader, I encourage you to go on to Build Your Confidence on Stage and actually enroll on the course. In fact, I'll even put a link as I'm talking right now. So that you're able to be able to learn exactly the skills you need to have to be able to improve your public speaking confidence. And these are things that I've created. And for me, public speaking itself is not just an overnight game. It's something you have to do quite some time, regularly, practice after practice, to be able to make it a success. And just to wrap up this part of this session, it's with the whole model of Build Your Confidence on Stage, I want to take people on a learning journey. That if you are somebody who has an idea that you want to become not just a good speaker or a great speaker, but even a professional speaker, is to take you through that journey. So in December this year, I'm launching a new book titled Build Your Confidence on Stage, Transform Your Aspiration for Public Speaking into a Lifestyle Profession. So to take people who are passionate about the world of public speaking and to actually help them transform that into a lifestyle business, just like I do, going around speaking to thousands, if not millions of people around the world at events which you've been invited to and you also get paid for. So you can actually turn public speaking into a lifestyle profession. And not many people actually give that a chance, that it is possible. Public speaking is often seen as you're invited to an event and you go and speak and that's it. You can actually earn from that. There's a lifestyle behind it. How do you go about doing that? I'll also share through the book and also through the courses as well. So you can enroll. I'll share the link shortly once I have access to it. so that you're able to enroll, or you can visit www.buildyourconfidenceonstage.com. So I leave it at that for now, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions in terms of if you want to learn anything further, I'll be able to go a bit deeper. Yeah, I hand it back to you now.
All right, Sabirul, so I am actually going to put you on the spot. I know that you mentioned that you do a lot of international travel. And one of the things that I do want to highlight is that predominantly most of our attendees are Bangladeshi. And the Southeast Asian culture is typically to be more submissive or quiet, timid, not be too outspoken. So how is this something that you address while you publicly speak? How have you overcome some of the quote unquote social norms that we've all been taught from a young age?
Sure. One of the biggest boundaries has been cultural pressure, has been cultural restrictions, has been the fact that you always have a label put on you before you even able to decide or discover who you are. And I myself was a victim of that. Because people especially from Bangladeshi community, being born and raised, I grew up majority of the time. In fact, the school that I went to, 95% of the people there were from the Bangladeshi community. So diversity in itself, even being in London, was not part and parcel of my everyday life. So I had to face and overcome such issues and challenges just like everybody else in Bangladesh would probably are facing. And confidence came about in the sense that I had to stand up and actually show that I am capable of doing something. And it's a sad reality that you have to prove yourself to not only your family, not only to your parents, but to your society. And it's an unfortunate thing that you shouldn't have to do. That when you have an idea, or when you want to go somewhere, it's about speaking with people who actually think beyond this sort of shell that you're living, this bubble that you're living in, that you have to be somebody who society tells you to be, or society says that because you're from this region, you're from this family, this is what we expect of you. There should be no expectation on you. Your expectation is what you want to achieve yourself. This pressure that comes from our peers, from our family, on our shoulders to be able to say that, yes, go become a so-and-so or doctor, engineer, and all those typical things. If you want to be, for example, a public speaker, people would look at that and say, what is that? Can you earn out of that? You need a degree. Even to go and actually go and fulfill a life, you need to have these things. I don't have a degree, but I actually did things which actually helped me understand and learn a bit about my own self. So starting a business at the age of 14 for me was a journey of self-discovery. Can I manage a team? What are the learnings that I take away from managing a small team of 6 friends at the time? And they were the geniuses. They knew everything about IT, technology, softwares and web development. I knew none of that. All I had in me was a burning desire, a passion, to be able to take that forward. And when I closed that company down, it wasn't because the company wasn't successful. It's because I realized that actually running a business for me was a great learning experience, but that's not where my forte is. That's not where my legacy is. Because of that question, when you leave this world, what will you want to be remembered for? And it's not necessarily about answering that question that, oh, I want to be remembered for making a difference to so-and-so's life or so-and-so. It's about going on a journey to discover what it means to you, not necessarily directly answering that. So for me, it was a journey of almost self-discovery, self-exploratory, to be able to find out what I'm good at and actually then tick off saying, actually, I'm not so good at that. For example, I went into investment, stock trading, and I was terrible at it. I lost a lot of money that way. And honestly, I can open up and say that that wasn't for me. But I got to learn and experience that way that actually, yes, stock trading, there are some good areas. There are the element of risk taking is involved there. And those skills, those small skills that I can take from these experiences, they help me carve together that experience and to show that I have knowledge. I have knowledge and experience which I can share with others. And that's what led to the book. The book is what opened doors for public speaking. So you see, there's a journey, there's a pattern, one after another. So one thing links to another. So my message here would be, anybody wishing to achieve something, whether it's public speaking, whether it's any other sort of profession, you have to be able to try other things that may not directly connect, but has that sort of synergy and link to it in the future, so that you're able to understand and experience who you are, what your skills are, what you're good at, before you can actually go and say to the rest of the world, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm good at. And one of the fundamental issues I personally have with a lot of people is that they try and emphasize everything on a CV. And for example, you're going and looking for a job, you have no experience, you've got no background in whatever, but you're almost making things up, or you're trying to put things that you think you're good at. But if you don't have any experience in actually giving something a try, volunteering for something, or you're putting yourself in a position where you've learned something new about yourself, that is when you actually improve your CV to go forward. And because you have actual experience to back it up with, and not necessarily paid experience, working experience, but just natural general experience, because you have a passion to be able to want to explore. So I would encourage that. And if there is cultural pressure on your shoulders saying that you shouldn't do this, focus on your exams, focus on your studies, focus on your degree, and then think about life. By then, life in itself, yeah, it's never too late. But I say always have something which you can do during that time, because your 24 hours of day is not just totally being spent on study, because ultimately we need to think bigger than that. The world is bigger than that. Your mind is has a lot more capacity than that. So try and explore more. And that's an inner courage. That's an inner burning desire that comes. And once you have that bit of a wake up call, you will not know. So I could say a lot of things about it. It's just individuals need to have that burning desire. Without that, you will almost lose that sort of spark that you have going forward. Hope that answers your question.
That was great. I think that was very helpful to hear as a Bangladeshi American here myself. So we want to start up the Q&A portion. We are a little ahead of schedule, which is great because that gives us more time to address more of your questions. And I really want to start the Q&A portion posing a question to both Sharmeen and Sabirul. And as this is related to COVID-19, our webinar, I want to know from you guys, how did this pandemic affect you? Not only just, we're all stuck at home and whatnot, but like, how did it affect your career? Sabirul, you mentioned that you travel for work. Where are you at with that? Sharmeen, I'm assuming that you're not able to go into the office as often, or are you able to? Are there certain restrictions, especially with cybersecurity? You mentioned that during this pandemic, there has been more breaches. So can you tell us a little bit more about exactly how this pandemic has affected you? How has your life changed in the last 6 months? Sharmeen, I think you're up first.
Yes. Hi. Okay, so I was frozen for a bit. Thank you for your question. It's a great question. So pandemic had impacted my life and has been impacted my life in a different ways. So first, I mentioned in the beginning that I changed my career during this pandemic through the virtual interviews. So I had never attended virtual interviews, and this is the first time I had 6 interviews virtually. So that was a great experience. And when I joined my new team, I wasn't able to see anyone face to face. So I had to use all the avenues, for example, all the communication tools that are approved by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to connect to my coworkers. And so I had weekly meetings with my manager to learn about expectation and what I'm going to do. All the training was virtually given. I wasn't able to go back to work. None of the people from my group went back to work. I think we're not going back to work in the physical location until January. So I had to take advantage of the virtual platform, all these communications tools like Skype, WebEx to connect. And also, when you're in a new group and if you're at your mid-career level, it's important to be visible to others so that they know you, because you don't really meet people in the elevator or in the cafeteria or introduce yourself. So what I had done is that I started with the presentation for the department meeting where there were like hundreds of people. So I I chose a topic on cybersecurity and I kind of spoke on that. So that gave me that visibility. So even though people didn't meet me in person, but now they know me. So taking advantage of those platforms and making sure you're proactively being visible is important when you land in a new career or you change your career during pandemic. The positive, so I only have positive experiences. So there is no negative really. And another positive one is that I used to have 3 hours of commute back and forth. Now I can use those 3 hours with my children, with my family, cooking and doing the things that I love. So I'm totally enjoying this time. I think I finally got a balanced life. As you know, if you're in New York, you know that we always run all the time. So it gave us a break from that commute, from that stressful life. So working from home has been great so far. One advice I would like to provide for the students that when you get an interview, you'll probably be interviewed virtually. So make sure that you practice front of, like, you can record yourself through the iPhone or anything. You practice before you interview. Make sure that your background is clean, because sometimes I know one of my friends told me, who interviewed some candidates recently. He actually told me that he got deviated when he saw like some backgrounds, like there was a bed in the background, so he started thinking, okay, is this her bedroom? Or so make sure that your background is plain and it doesn't represent any views, so that the interviewer doesn't have any it doesn't prejudge you or anything. So that's one advice. Another thing I just wanted to, I know that I wanted to touch on that, is the diversity and inclusion. And during the pandemic, it is many companies have these diversity and inclusion programs, and many companies are actively hiring women in all different levels. So make sure all women out there from Bangladesh, from India, or anywhere who are participating in this webcast, ensure that um, um, ensure that you take advantage of that. So make sure that you apply for these jobs, even if you think that those are far reaching, but you never know. So just be, as Sabiru mentioned, be confident, and you actually know a lot more you think you know. And there are opportunities out there right now, and people are more open. I can talk for Bangladeshi companies, but in America, people are more open to hiring women from our areas, women in color. So there are a lot of opportunities out there. So get out there and try out different interviews and get some experience. And I'm sure you land your dream job soon.
Okay, great. So Sabirul, if you can tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted you. Like I said, I'm sure you're not able to travel nearly as much. I myself actually travel quite a bit for work, and I've been grounded for quite some time. So it's been a huge change. So let us know how it's been for you.
It's been a completely new sort of experience. I think it's the first time I've actually since 2007, 2008 have not traveled to another country. So it has hit hard in the sense that my life almost has come at a bit of a standstill. Or at least that's what I would have thought if you don't do anything or take any action. So a lot of what I do is now based online, just like this. But in terms of using the COVID time, as much as it's been an unfortunate experience and quite a challenging experience for the whole world, it's also, you have to see it, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective, see it as an opportunity. Because I developed a lot of on the process of developing a lot of online courses, just sharing the experiences that I have in public speaking, because I feel there's a need for it. And I feel that because of what I've learned, meeting people from all walks of life, all cultures, public speaking, it's a very universal challenge. So for me, my daily sort of routine, I think from March to around end of July almost went in terms of writing the book. I think it was a great opportunity because everything was so closed off in lockdown, an opportunity for me to almost think and bring all my experiences onto paper and say, how can I actually empower people? How can I take them on a learning journey to improve their psychology, their way of thinking, so that they are not just mentally prepared, but also they have the skill set in terms of how do you go about script writing, how do you go about the rehearsals, what are the stages of rehearsals that you need to do, and also going and setting up your own lifestyle business as a speaker. So I think a lot of my time was spent during the writing and obviously developing of the first course, which is called Present with Confidence, which I spoke about. And I think it's really wrong to say, but almost been, from an entrepreneurial perspective, a blessing in disguise, the fact that I've had this time to myself to be able to rejig a few things, sort of look at what I've done over the past 12 years, 12, 13 years, and see exactly what's worked, what hasn't, what's right, the audiences that I've touched in this 31 different countries that I've been to, who's had the most significant impact, who's benefited from the most, and which regions do I really want to focus on, especially with these sort of online sessions. So there's a lot of that I'll be doing throughout the rest of the year before the book launches in December. So for instance, one of the key focuses is now to host monthly classes online where people will come on for free, where I teach them certain topics that I present in the Present with Confidence, and also in the flagship course that comes out with the book later on in the year. So all of these things are just to create a build up, that momentum, that you, even during hardship, during tough times, you can still grab an audience, you can still find an audience, because the need doesn't evaporate. People are having to learn to feel confident, because not everybody can speak in front of a camera. So adjusting the message in terms of how do you actually do that. So one of the things that I really want to emphasize, that all of it is done. For example, handling nerves, you have to know the attendees. One of the best practices, and I think there was a question phrased around how to handle nerves or overcome nerves. Speaking on stage is one thing. Speaking on camera is also a different experience. The two different things being is that obviously on stage you're in front of a live audience, and on front of a camera you're pretty much at home in your comfort zone, and that in itself holds a lot of challenges. So adjusting that, for example, one of my first sessions I did during the COVID online was I was sweating so much because it was quite a new experience. As much as I love the whole being in front of camera, I've done TV shows, but I've not actually spoken and done much interviews or spoken to or delivered classes online, sitting in my own comfort of my own work chair at home with my telly in front of me. So this adjustment process did take a couple of weeks to, okay, I need to bring in what my actual practices were into my sort of virtual form of learning. So things like knowing your audience, this is one of the key factors when it comes to public speaking. Knowing who are they. For example, this session, it's focused around people in the US. I know there's people from Bangladesh. It's about my experiences, two countries that I visited. What did I learn from those two visits to those countries, and using those to put down notes exactly the way people behave, their culture, their way of approach, and how I can actually make a difference. So knowing that audience first actually gives me that confidence that actually I'm well prepared in that sense. Then looking at the structure of what I'll be talking about, and then seeing exactly what it is that they want to learn. So all of these things are what you would do for a live face-to-face session, and then actually transferring those skills to an online virtual session. So it is a bit of an adjustment, but it's not to say it's not possible. I think you get more and more confident the more you do it. And the great benefit is that you get to read and see a lot of comments coming through. And I think all of these things are not necessarily something you would get to have the experience of during a live a session, because you'd have to wait during, for example, a Q&A session. Everyone puts up their hand, they start talking. But when you can see these feeds coming through, whether it's a praise, whether it's a question, you can see it. It gives you that sort of confidence to not only directly answer that in whatever you're presenting, but also to perhaps answer it at a later stage when you know that this sort of question has been raised. So it has been an adjustment, and it's also a sad experience, the fact that the world is going through these issues and I not having the opportunity or the luxury of traveling, because it's one of the perks of public speaking or a lifestyle as a public speaker. The fact that you get to visit so many countries in your wildest dreams you would have never ever thought that you'd actually go and visit, because there's a need and a demand for your speech, but at least you can still connect with those nations virtually. So that's what I'm proud of, and I would encourage more and more people to actually develop that level of confidence, virtually and also face to face as well.
Thank you. So we're going to pose our next question specifically to oh, I think she just dropped off. Okay. So Sabirul, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions that have been coming up while you were speaking. I think we lost Sharmeen very, very briefly, and once she comes back, I'll pose some questions to her. We have one question that's specific to, they want to know, do you need to improve your speaking skills before you even go into public speaking, or do you feel that you improved your skills while you continued public speaking?
It's a learning journey. So for me, it's not necessarily, you can never master public speaking theoretically. As much as you can read tons of books, know every little fine theory there is about public speaking. For example, having your shoulders up, speaking with a vibrant, loud voice, making sure you make pauses when you have an important point. All of these little things that you can do when it comes to public speaking. But when you actually go and present on stage, that's a whole new experience altogether, because there your mind is working on twofolds, looking at the audience, how they're feeling, and also trying to deliver the message in which you planned and prepared for. So you're learning as you're delivering. And as I said, it took me around a good couple of years. My first ever speech at the age of 17, if I look back now, I say I was terrible at that point, but I will say also I was the best and most rewarding experience, purely because I was able to showcase that vulnerability element that I had, and that was a selling point. So don't be scared. Don't be scared of actually feeling vulnerable on stage, because that in itself is a selling point, because people can see how innocent you are, that you've taken the time to put together a speech and you're having that courage to step up. And that in itself puts you a million miles ahead of people who A, don't prepare, and B, actually don't speak on stage at all, because it's the fact that you've given a lot of thought into who the audience are, what they wish to learn. And I call it the triangle formula. Let me just give you a quick idea about what that is, and I think this should answer the question directly. There are three elements. So you as the speaker, there's the audience, and there's the subject. So you need to know, you as the speaker need to have enough knowledge on the subject in which you're presenting to feel confident in the first place. If you know nothing about the subject and you're trying to present, you've already lost the audience there. Okay, the second question is, how much does the audience know about the subject? If they're far more educated than you in the subject in which you're presenting, there's a bit of a pickle in which you need to come across. That doesn't mean that you can't present in front of them. It just means that you probably have to provide a unique twist, a unique angle, a unique perspective to be able to deliver this subject, so it gives them a new form of learning. And then the third element is obviously you and the audience itself. So what do you know about the audience? Where are they from? So it's that research you do about the audience itself. So that triangle formula, when you keep that in mind before you go and speak at any event, know yourself, know the subject very well, make sure you have enough knowledge to be able to present. If you don't, what's a unique angle you can provide that gives your personal experience of it, and know the audience, and make sure that do your research on what the audience and the subject knows. So keep that in mind, okay? And I think that should give you some sort of stepping stone. And in fact, that's one of the things I teach as part of the Present with Confidence course, which is a free online course, 30 minutes public speaking, just to help you, anybody who's a working professional or an emerging leader, understand the very foundations of public speaking, so that you can get yourself speech ready for whether it's a performance in front of an audience, or whether it's a speech you need to deliver at work, or even if it's a debate at a university. Whatever your event is that you're speaking in front of, it gets you prepared for that. So I'd encourage everyone who is looking to harness their skills to enroll on that course. You've got nothing to lose, and I think it gives you that opportunity to be able to learn and understand more about yourself. And I think that's the first foundational steps you need to go through.
Thank you so much, Sabirul. You have pointed out very crucial points. So kudos to you for that. But we will move to Sharmeen. We have got her back after that short disconnection. So we will move to Sharmeen now. We've got a lot of questions. So thanks a lot to our viewers for giving us the questions. keep them coming. Even if we cannot answer you within the due time, we will get back to you with the answers from our speakers. So the first question that I'm gonna go top down from the time we received them. We got a question for Charmaine that reads, "What are your advices for college students looking for internships and recent graduates interested in entry-level jobs?" If you could enlighten us on that.
That's a great question. So make sure that you're already involved with your college's different clubs, many associations you can be involved, and you take a role of, let's say, vice president, president, or any like important role or treasurer within your university's club. So that's one thing that will give you some experience even for the internship. Try, apply to any internship jobs that you're interested, and even if there are some volunteer jobs that may not pay now, but you get the experience, and that's what help you to land on your next internship. So for example, I'll just give example from my life, that when I used to be at Baruch College, I was president of the Bangladesh Student Association. I was involved in student government. I led some fundraising initiatives. So that helped me get into great internships. Like I interned at Philip Morris, then now it's called Altria. And that was a great internship for me, which helped me to get into Deloitte and other companies later in life. So two things very important: get involved within the college's different associations and keep applying for those internships. Even if it doesn't pay you, you earn the experience, and your next internship you can show that experience, and we will get your fair payment for that.
Thanks so much for that. I'll have a follow-up question from another viewer, which kind of ties together with this question. So it reads, "I'm doing my second bachelor's degree in management information system and did a virtual internship in cybersecurity in my last semester. I'm trying to get into cybersecurity. Should I go for entry-level positions after completing Security Plus, or what will you suggest to get into the cybersecurity field?"
So your question is that if you're going to get into the entry-level position, or I missed the. So if you're getting this certification, then you should definitely apply for entry-level position and try to get that experience. There are different areas. So for example, there are networking areas, data security area, cyber resiliency, business continuity, all these areas. So if your certification is related to networking, so you do want to get more experience in that area, so definitely you should start with entry level, and that should help that experience. And you may not have to be entry level for many years. Like if you have the expertise and you have the right certification, you'll be able to move up pretty quickly within the companies. Also, I have a question. You said it's your second bachelor. Did you have job experience before this second bachelor? Maybe we can take it offline. You can connect to me via LinkedIn.
I was going to say, anyone that has any specific questions and we're not able to address, again, we will get to them. So Sharmeen and Sabirul, I actually do want to ask you a question. Sharmeen, you might be able to speak about this a little bit more, but Sabirul, I definitely want your input as well. One is, how are you guys connecting to your teams virtually? I think, Sharmeen, you mentioned about using Skype, WebEx, etc. But two, the other question that I think is very important, especially this time, is women in your respective careers. What sort of tips do you have for them, Sharmeen? And then Sabirul, I know this is a little bit more difficult for you to address, but can you tell us a little bit more about your interactions with other women public speakers? So Sharmeen, I'll give it to you first, and then we'll bounce to Sabirul.
Thank you, Shanaz. For the women in this field, I would strongly encourage you to become a member of the Women in Cybersecurity organization. This is a non-profit organization based at US, but you can be anywhere in the world and become a member of that organization. I'm part of that organization, and I'm also in the work group within that organization that helps women advancement in cybersecurity field or any technology field. So, and you can be a student and can be a member. There is a job discussion board, job posting. There are many women from Facebook, Google, who are in leadership position. They're in that organization. So take advantage of that. And for the women, you have a great chance in cybersecurity because companies are actively hiring women because they realize that there are less women in this field, but women are equally effective and they're equally talented as men, and that has been accepted here. So you have a great chance to get into this field right now.
All right. Thank you, Sharmeen. So Sabirul, again, I do realize that, you're not a woman here, but tell us about the women that you have worked with, or any advice that you do have for women, because again, knowing what our cultural background is, unfortunately, women do not get the same experiences or priorities as men. So maybe something about overcoming that as well.
Yeah, so in fact, one of the tours that I did as part of the Inspire 1 Million, having visited Malaysia, Singapore, and also the UAE, that was with a female colleague who is a professional speaker. In fact, her background was in politics, and she's a year younger than me. So it just goes to show she, in fact, was nominated or became the youngest female counselor here in the UK at the age of 21. And she had a great story to tell in terms of how she overcame boundaries, barriers, the pressure of being female and the expectations female often have on their shoulders, and being from an Asian community. So she had a great story, and I was able to connect with her and actually do one of the Inspire 1 Million tours, and travel. And actually, because I felt that she had a very strong message, and I think there's a lot of individuals, a lot of females who can relate to that, because I think we often, or people often, can actually misjudge or actually underestimate the authority and the power a female voice can have on a message. And I think it's more about the intellect that comes out. And I have to say that the female speakers who I've worked with are a lot more wiser and a lot more energetic in terms of the message in which they deliver. And it's a lot, they have the pulling power in terms of the power of the message in which they want to give. So anybody, in fact, even in the course that I produced, there's more females who have enrolled on the course wanting to learn than male participants. So it just goes to show that desire to want to learn is actually burning much stronger in a female, and often the restrictions and the barriers that are placed, societal barriers that are placed, is often what's holding them back. But there is that very few who actually can break out of that and find that shell. So I would encourage, if you have an idea or a passion and a will to do something, don't think of yourself just because you're female that you have expectations on your shoulder. Anybody and everybody in a cultural pressured environment has expectation on their shoulders, so you're not alone in that, but it's just the perspective or the viewpoint in how you see your own self. And I think we have to be very proud of people who actually break away from that shell. And I was very proud of my friend that she was able to be not just a female counselor, but the youngest female counselor, having gone and broke away from this whole negativity surrounding in her family, in her cultural background. And I think all of this paved way. So she was a great inspiration for me in terms of what is possible and what can be done. And she had a great story to tell. And I think there's a lot of people like her in terms of what ambition they have and the journey they wish to pursue, and meeting so many individuals along the way like that. So I think you need to create your own network. You need to create people who are positive driven, positive minded, who can help you push and accelerate and going forward. And I think if you're going to keep yourself in the locked away and in a bubble of small group of narrow minded people, then you're obviously going to be falling victim to that. So how can you think beyond that? And even people I met in Bangladesh who throughout my tours, I think there's been a great remarkable number of female personalities who I've come across who helped organize the tours, who helped speak during the tours, who helped share their success stories, and they're great inspirational figures. And even when you look at Bangladesh, the prime minister herself is female, and that in itself should speak volumes to a nation where I'm really surprised doesn't have more female leaders coming through. So it's just about really emphasizing on what is possible. And I think if you're creative and if you have that capacity and that fuel to really want to burn and desire to want to achieve, anything is possible, whether you're male or whether you're female. The gender should not be a restriction whatsoever.
Thank you, Sabirul, for that. So another question for you both is that, obviously we are speaking about diversity. So one of the things that I do want to have you guys address is, how has it been in your respective industries, in your fields, being a person of color? Have you experienced any kind of pushback or any kind of discrimination due to, being a person of color? So Sharmeen, if you want to start, and then we'll go to Sabirul. Sharmeen, I think your audio is off. Can you check your audio settings real quick?
Sure, it has been a long journey. So yes, I did experience discrimination and intelligence, or I had to cross through. Hi, Shanaz. Okay, so sorry, I think I got my screen got frozen for a bit. So yes, I experienced a lot of those, but one way to overcome is that show your make an impact wherever you go. Even improve the process, or do something for the companies that help them to see you that you are capable for doing more than what you are. So yes, there is that extra step that we have to take to get that trust from the people. So, but as I mentioned before, because people are thinking about diversity and inclusion now, companies are actually accepting women, and they're realizing that they shouldn't question the intellect of women, or they shouldn't question how capable they are. They should be equally treated. So they're actively, I'm sure those challenges will be overcome in the future. But my advice for women out there is that be comfortable in your skin color, be what you are. You don't have to change anything to be acceptable. Just do good work and just trust yourself.
Great, thank you. Sabirul, if you can also address this, and maybe one of the other things that you can talk about, especially, sometimes we experience this thing where people from different cultures, they have different accents, and sometimes when you go to publicly speak, or just in general, someone will say like, oh, so-and-so talks funny, So how do you address being a person of color, and then how do you guys also address having an accent, or, dealing with people with the accents, or that sort of perception that you're not as good because you don't speak English as fluently?
I think it's been a big issue for me throughout my journey in terms of being a person of color. Not necessarily for example, if I do tours in Asia, if I do tours in Africa, that's perfectly fine. Tours in North America have been very difficult. Tours even across Europe and the Middle East have been very challenging, especially to get buy-in. And one of the first things I'm often judged in, and they wouldn't say it, but it is because I'm from a Bangladeshi background. And that in itself is almost a huge weight that I've had to overcome, a struggle that I've had to overcome to get that buy-in. Because unfortunately, even during one of the tours when I went to Dubai to deliver with my friend, it was a very important and a big realization that the message that I was getting from a few people, even after delivering a 30-minute speech on stage, was that yes, Bangladesh is a great nation, hardworking people, but we often look down on them. So I'm very surprised that you as an individual have really risen above that, and that really hit me at that point, that why are we so viewed differently because of where we're from, our nationality, our background, our ethnicity. All of these paved way a huge realization that actually there's social issues in countries around the world which I myself cannot eliminate on my own and change their perception. But for the people in the audience, in fact, after that comment was made, I asked the organizer for a good 20 minutes more on the stage after the session was done to really address this point. And because there are a few people on there in the audience who were not from that region, and really waving their flags for them, that no matter where you are, what culture, what ethnicity, what background, we all have a voice, we all have an opinion, we all have a message to share, and we shouldn't be restricted or feel burdened because of where we come from. And I think that's a universal message that needs to be echoed all around the world. And I think a lot of nations do understand that, and a lot of nations respect you. For example, going to Africa, for example, when I went to Nigeria for the first time, I was idolized as an individual going to Nigeria, and it blew me completely right off that I'm only 18 years old and yet I'm seen as someone with such high status. Whereas I went to the Middle East and I was seen somebody not as much of a high status. Not that I wanted any status or anything. That's not the reason I went there. But it just goes to show the perception of how people perceive you, of how they see you as an individual. And unfortunately, it's an issue that has been there, hence why majority of my tours have been focused around Africa, have been focused around Latin America, have been focused around Asia, and not as much around in North America. And this is an ongoing situation which, even if you try to raise with an organizer, they wouldn't say it, they wouldn't present it, but it's those attending that will make it difficult. So you just have to fight your way around that, and obviously rise above that when you are invited and when you are presenting. And I think even if you look beyond that, when you want to achieve anything in life, whether it's in public speaking, whether it's in your profession, whether you want to become a writer or whatever it is, there will be people who almost see you negatively, who see you as somebody you shouldn't be here. For example, I'm diagnosed with epilepsy. I have a medical condition, and I was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 11. And for me, it was one of those things where I never felt that I could travel. I never felt that I could speak on stage. And on one of the events that I delivered, I actually did have a seizure on stage. And it terrified the life out of everybody. But what I learned about myself, that even if I do personally feel that I've got the courage to be able to deliver and overcome and prove to myself that it's possible to overcome, even in that 5 minutes of making the organizer nervous, making the people in attendance very nervous as to what's going on. He was delivering a great talk. All of a sudden, he stopped and is blanked out on stage. So I asked for a good 5-10 minutes a break, and then came back on to conclude my speech. And then I got a standing ovation, because it's purely on the basis that you're proving to your own self that you can rise above all of these stereotypes and issues that are restricted and society sees. Like, for instance, with people who are diagnosed with epilepsy, they are often very reserved and held back. Hence why I think that whole introverted culture initially came to me, because although I was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 11, I knew I was epileptic from a very, very early age, childhood age. So it was these things that played a huge factor. So whether I'm a person of color or a person of medical condition, a person even of gender, it's all of these things that really made me become a stronger character and become a stronger personality. And I think everybody needs to understand that and learn from the importance and the strengths they hold, and not see their vulnerabilities or not see their negativities as a thing that really can hold them back, but as an asset to really tell a great story. Because when I start sharing these with people, oh my God, you've overcome such negative experiences, you've overcome hatred, you've overcome a medical condition where even my doctor told me that I cannot fly, and that was my childhood ambition to travel the world and make a difference. It just goes to show that it is possible even in all these crises, all these difficulties. So I wanted people to take away that, people are not what they perceive you to be, or you want, when you see somebody, they may look amazing, they may say things amazing, but they have a story behind the scenes which when they share with you can be so empowering, so motivating, so driven, that it gives you personally a wake-up call. Hence why that speech in the Middle East 20 minutes after delivering the first part of the talk was so uplifting for those in attendance, because it was their wake-up call that actually being a person of different color, a person of from a Bangladeshi background, doesn't mean anything whatsoever other than the fact that you're proud of who you are. And I think that's what they ended up taking away from them. And I think they're able to look at us as people of color and say that, yeah, they do hold value, they do hold significance, and you have to prove that to yourself first before you prove that to anybody else.
Thank you so much, Sabirul, for that. I think that the main takeaway from both what you and Sharmeen have shared is that we really need to have confidence in who we are, regardless of our background, really take pride in our, various cultural backgrounds, whether we're here in the US, in the UK, in Bangladesh, etc. So I think it's an important message that we need to be sharing with everyone at all times. Just be proud of who you are, be confident. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background is. Be who you are. And that's one of the key steps to being successful in your career. So I think that we are getting closer to the end of the Q&A section. Rubaiyat, if you have any final questions for Sharmeen and Sabirul, I think it would be great to share those now.
Sure. Okay, so I have a few questions from multiple people. I'm going to tie them together because they are more sort of like on the same topic. It's towards Sabirul more specifically. So we spoke about public speaking on stage more so, but if we decrease its criteria and bring it down to our personal level. So let's say someone is still a student majoring in any kind of background, and they have a presentation in class, but they're really afraid of doing it because they have the fear of public speaking in a classroom setting. Or let's say somebody is going for a job interview, may it be physical interview or a virtual interview. Some processes are different, but basic is the same, and how to approach those interviews. And also somebody after getting a job, it's their in presentation time, they have to present in front of their board members or their team members, but they're shying away because they're fearing that they're under the pressure. What are key do's and don'ts you would want to suggest them personally from your experience and everything to those students, to those newly hired employees, or who are about to get hired or interviewed? So if you could share your insights on them.
I, in fact, went for a job interview very surprisingly many years ago. And one of the things that I learned from that experience was that the under preparation that I had at that time was a harsh reality on myself, that actually people have an expectation in terms of, yes, there's a JD, there's a job description there that they want you to sort of tick off and stuff. But I think where you actually sell yourself to the employer is when you actually tell your own story, when you have that integrity, that honesty. And that honesty of you comes out, or that real you actually comes out, rather than to try and fake this whole character in which you think they're expecting, because that's not what they're expecting. They're expecting to hear you. So we have to be very clear on that. And that was a big learning curve. And I was quite young at that time when I went for that interview. But with job interviews and public speaking, it's all a confidence game. It's all a confidence factor. And I think one of the things that you can take away is that to be able to build confidence is to be able to know what the initial expectations are, and then see what of your own experiences fills those boots or fill those shoes. So for me, when you want to tell a story, for example, a personal experience, especially in a job interview, for instance, you have probably experienced something where you've handled a certain situation, and this is what you tried doing. This is what worked. This is what you learned from it, and this is what the outcome was. So that in itself aligns with public speaking very nicely in terms of how you tell a story. And I want to share this in a 3-act fold. First and foremost is to be able to know exactly what you're going to be talking about. For example, there are 4 key elements there: the people, the place, the things, and time. When did it happen? Who was involved? What is it that was involved in that? What was the thing that you were talking about? And also, when did it occur? All of these things actually create a sort of an initial act to tell your story. So people could be, for example, it could be yourself. It could be an experience with somebody else. It could be a moment in which you were a couple of years ago. This is what's happened. And then when you take that forward, you actually able to find little stories about yourself, and then look into the second element of the act, which is the conflict. What went wrong? And I think even with job interviews, they're looking for that. They're looking for that element of the story. What went wrong in when you tried something? And then comes the third act, which is how you're able to resolve that, because you were able to identify the mistake you made or something that you did went wrong. And then you had the strength to be able to fix that error or to make that correct. And then when you're speaking on stage, this is almost a sort of a way of telling a story, that people want to be brought into the idea of, yes, you're setting the scene as to this is what's included, this is what the experience was, this was the conflict that occurred, and then this is how I solved these issues. So both public speaking and job interviews align like that, and all of it is a confidence game. So whenever I'm speaking on stage, it's about knowing what the expectations are, but not necessarily just delivering on that expectation, but actually pre-preparing and planning exactly what I'm going to be talking about, looking into my 30-year background history of my life, certain stories I can take away from perhaps 2010, 2012, that really ticks those boxes in which would engage them. And when you're looking at the employer as the member of the audience, this is what the audience wants to hear. So both of these things align, and I think these are critical factors when trying to educate others, that actually job interviews are not meant to be seen as something that's going to be so stressful, so panicky, so it's going to make you feel so nervous on stage. Because when you are well prepared and you know what to say, you're going to go there and you're going to tell it as if you're telling a story, you're telling your experience, and that's what they want to hear. They will have questions, I'm sure, but when you have that enough preparation in hand, you'll be able to answer those questions without any sort of challenges and any sort of issues. And I think that's the key message here. There isn't a specific one solution that fits how to do the best interview. There are specific questions they might ask. It's about looking into your personal experience and how you handle these challenges that allows you to be able to deal with these issues, that these conflicts that you might face during an interview. I hope that answers the question.
No, that was great. Thank you. So I think that, we're basically at the point where we can end our Q&A. So I'll just start off with thanking everybody for joining. I hope that this was, informational for everyone. Sharmeen, Sabirul, on behalf of BSP, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I at least learned quite a bit, and I think that, given the backgrounds that we all have, you guys really encouraged or gave the encouragement that we need to, proceed in our various fields. I know that there were a lot of questions that you guys had to address today, so you guys did great. So just for the audience, if anybody wants to get involved with BSP, or if you guys have any questions, if you want to be a mentor, you want to, get involved, send an email to bsp.operations@gmail.com. We're always looking forward to having people join our team. Again, Sharmeen, Sabirul, thank you so much for your time. I know that, Sabirul, it's kind of later in the evening for you, and Sharmeen, both of you guys are dedicating time on a weekend to help our community. So again, thank you so much. And Rubaiyat, if you have any closing comments, go for it.
Sure, I'd like to thank both of our guest speakers. Thank you, Charmaine, for your straightforward technical answers to what to do and what not to do, and how you are facing COVID-19 with such confidence and you're excelling in your life. We all the best that you reach the higher position in whatever you set your mind to. And Sabirul, thank you so much. You're a powerhouse of motivation and inspiration. Like, I hope when you said people may forget after the event or after a few hours of that, I hope they keep on listening to you, to your channel, to your Facebook page and everything, so that they keep on that loop going and they excel in their lives as well. And it's not just the introvert people that we kind of go toward, who are shy, who are not that good in public speaking. It's also a lot of people who are extroverts, who think they have the full confidence and go on and blurt out what they want to say. It's always that right balance between, and it's always hard to strike that balance. But I believe that listening to you, a lot of people will learn a lot of things. I myself have learned a lot from you, so thank you so much for that. We lost Charmaine for a few seconds, so we got her back. And so I'd like to thank everyone who joined our Facebook Live today, shared it with all your friends and family, and commented all the questions. Thank you so much. And who will watch later when it posts on Facebook. And let us know your feedbacks, how we did, what could have gone better, so that we can polish on it and serve you better in the future Facebook Lives, and give us topics on what you want us to cover next time to improve ourselves and the community as a whole. So that is my closing, and we're good to go.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.